a major announcement, and he made it at dcreport.org. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, 4-time best-selling author, friend of the show, and so excited to have him join us on Tuesdays. David Cay Johnston, everybody. Hi, David.
Hi there.
First of all, I will tell you that I saw you with Chip Franklin this morning, and, I felt, this is just... He did something with David Cay Johnston, Kim, that I was not at all happy with, and I'll tell you what it was. He made David Cay Johnston, who is a treasure, a national treasure, and I'm not just exaggerating for humor.
To be respected and revered.
He made him share time with some guy from the Washington Post. It was outrageous. I'm telling you.
Why are you yelling?
I'm saying that I was bothered by it. David, far too gracious. Didn't seem at all bothered by it, but I was bothered by it, David. Anyway, welcome here. You will never have to share the spotlight here, David.
Why are you yelling?
You are the guy. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
You did make an announcement at dcreport.org. This is the website that you co-founded, and you are pushing away from your daily work at dcreport.org, but the website continues, and the journalism related continues as well.
Right, yeah. Effective January 1st, I stepped back as publisher and editor-in-chief, and my best friend David Crook, who used to be in San Francisco and was a high-level editor at the Wall Street Journal, he created the remarkably profitable and journalistically fantastic Wall Street Journal Sunday that existed for 15 years and had, I think, 11 or 12 million circulation at its peak. It was 5 or 6 times that of the regular Wall Street Journal. And David stepped back also. I just turned 74, and there comes a point when you need to step back. So I'm going to continue to teach at Syracuse University College of Law part-time. I've been there since 2009. I'm going to focus on my books, and my wife and I are going to spend a lot of time traveling.
Well, that's great. I know you spent some time, yeah, exactly, recently doing that, and it was clearly rewarding. But you're leaving out one thing that you're going to continue doing. What is that, David?
Being on your show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Indeed.
I feel a little bit jilted in the sweatshirt department this morning. Usually we've got some type of college or we represent some type of higher learning institution. And today there's nothing.
It's just a tighter shot, I think. Today,
well, underneath it says, but I just spilled some food on it, Ocean City, New Jersey. Where
all right.
All right.
I grew up in D.C., so we'd go over there to the Jersey Shore occasionally, and during the summers. All right, let's put you to work here, please. There is a fight within the GOP congressional crew. I was saying before, this isn't over a political philosophy or an ideology. These are, I think, just it's a power grab. And Kevin McCarthy wants it. And in the first vote, he didn't get it. I wonder if you could give us a breakdown.
Well, 100 years ago today, I believe it was today, but 100 years ago, we had a candidate for speaker vote that failed, and it just happened again. 19 Republicans voted against Kevin McCarthy, who comes from a district near Bakersfield. And I think that we may end up having a lot of fun watching the House Republicans over the next 2 years, because you remember when Republicans called themselves the party of ideas? We're all old enough to remember that. They don't have any ideas. Kevin McCarthy's only idea is what he said this morning, literally, I'm entitled to be speaker. Entitled. What a stunning word for a Republican to use. One of the things I think might happen, and might, of course, implies doubt, is that the Democrats might agree to vote for some grown-up Republican. And the whole House gets to vote on who's speaker. And, of course, anybody could be speaker. Mark, we could put you up to be speaker.
Oh, I like that so far. Yeah.
But, this is going to be fascinating to watch, because McCarthy was totally tied up by such deep political thinkers as Boebert, Green, Getz, and Jim Jordan, and the name of the racist Gosar from Arizona. And I think it's just going to be great as entertainment, sad for the country, but great as entertainment to watch this clown show. And it also should make people appreciate why many of us, including historians, are saying that Nancy Pelosi was the greatest speaker in the history of the House. You know, when she brought things to the floor, she always had the votes. She saved Obamacare that Obama would have lost but for Nancy Pelosi. She ran a well-running machine in the sense of making the machinery of government work. Yeah. And there's nobody who is as skilled as she is in either party in the House.
You could argue that the Democrats,
79 or 80, so she really needs to step back.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's right. The coalition the Democrats had to put together was as frayed as this one. Yes. You know, so I think you speak to what is a real ability to pull them together. I mean, the squad could, you know, equate to. I mean, I think they have a foot in reality, and then those who, you know, to whom you refer, don't have a foot in reality. But still, they were breaking with the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think the squad is basically young people in Congress who are tired of okay, well, decades from now, we'll get around to really resolving that. They're like, no, now. We're going to do this now. And if they can get enough people to vote for candidates like them, there are a lot of things we can do now instead of in the future.
I wonder if I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim, and then I have a question about what practical.
A question just about what happens today. So the first vote McCarthy loses. They're on to a second round of voting. How does it work? Do they just keep punching through with these votes until a candidate emerges? And if not McCarthy, then who?
Yeah, the woman whose name I can't recall at the moment, another reason to step back, who is the clerk of the House, is for now the presiding officer. And she will decide how many times they vote. I would expect maybe 3 rounds today, possibly 4. And then they'll break. They'll do a lot of behind the scenes horse trading overnight. The most likely outcome for this is that somebody who is universally respected, other than the really far out there people I mentioned a moment ago, like Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, will end up becoming the speaker.
Oh God!
Somebody, even if necessary, Democrats could vote for. But for now, the Democrats are just going to sit back and go, "Oh, this is great for us."
Well, when you say horse trading overnight, does that mean this is where they say, "What do you give me for my vote?"
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come on. That's what goes on in politics all the time. You know, we used to do it with pork, and then Newt Gingrich and his crowd got this fascinating idea 25 years ago. Well, we should ban pork. You know, in the Pennsylvania legislature, they call it walking around money. I think the idea of every member of Congress gets X dollars to designate they want spent in the federal budget sounds fine to me. We learn a lot about it, but you have to designate. You have to say, okay, this is my $1 million or $100 million I get to spend in the program I want, and you have to publish a list. I'm all for that.
Well, any sort of transparency when it comes to money would be welcome. The reality is that I think a lot of these people are in this business now and are even extracting concessions from McCarthy because they want to maintain a role in the House so that they can continue to fundraise. I think
some of these people apparently asked to be made committee chairman in return for their vote, and that's a bridge too far even for McCarthy. And McCarthy still might put together a coalition, but if he does, you know, his job is about as safe as that of someone standing on the end of a plank. One big wave and you're over.
Yeah, they've really asked him for a lot. They've asked him for the continued exposure of the speaker to be voted out. And
at a request of 5 members.
Yes.
I mean, no confidence votes are fine, but 5 members can bring a no confidence vote. That's the fundamental problem here is that the Republicans don't have an ideology anymore. Their ideology at most recently was we're for whatever Donald Trump wants, but they don't have one. Tax cuts, perhaps they don't even have a tax cut plan. Remember, for years, we have to repeal Obamacare and replace it. They never had a replacement. they have not done the hard, boring work of governing. And we don't see that. The public thinks that this is all, I just get together and do something. It's like thinking that you can run a giant corporation with a handful of people. There are thousands of people who work at General Motors and Ford and Hewlett Packard and other companies that make those companies work. And they do serious work. But we've created this cartoon notion that Washington doesn't really do any work. And that's just not true. They do lots and lots of very detailed work that requires enormous specialized knowledge.
They also wanted to gut the Office of Congressional Ethics. I don't know how, when you make that a priority, yeah, they literally, that was one of their demands that McCarthy had to accede to.
That's your platform? Okay.
Yes, yeah. We're corrupt, but at least we're upfront about it.
Exceed, you're right, is a ding word. So I wanted to ask, David, you talk about Democrats sitting back and just watching this clown show. What is the practical effect of not having a speaker? There are some significant things. They want to get all these investigations on a Hunter and Joe and impeach this person and that. None of that can happen until they get a speaker, right?
Yeah, but we're talking about a few days probably. While they figure out how they're going to resolve this problem. I mean, I don't think the time level is significant. They absolutely say that they're going to, go after Hunter Biden. Well, one of the things people forget about Hunter Biden is that every U.S. attorney, 89 of the 90, was replaced when Biden came in. He left the guy in Delaware there, and they told him, you're free to pursue your investigation of Hunter Biden. You can go after my son. And there's nothing Biden has done since then indicating he has in any way influenced the Justice Department whatsoever, whereas we know Trump did all the time. He talked about doing it. And so if they've got something on Hunter Biden, have at it. They want to impeach the now departed Anthony Fauci. Okay, I mean, go ahead and do this. Hold hearings on it. You're going to find out, unlike all the lies being told, he doesn't have billions of dollars. He's not secretly on the Chinese payroll. He hasn't been taken over by reptilian aliens and just crazy stuff. I mean,
that doesn't mean.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
The best thing that could happen to the Democrats is for the Republicans to just be 2023 Republicans.
I mean, I think the last thing on that point, I wonder if you agree, is that it appears, based on midterms and polling and that sort of thing, and the polling that seems to have corresponded with the midterm results, Americans are kind of tired of that stuff. I mean, I get that there is a portion of America that wants to, lash Fauci to the stern or whatever. But the reality is most Americans are kind of over it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And one of the stories of this election that political scientists will eventually, in a year or three, give us detailed reports on is the Democrats lost their majority because the New York State Democratic Party, I live in Rochester, New York, the Democrats in New York State lost 5 seats. That's the margin that the Republicans have. And they lost them through the most Bush League, amateur hour, incompetent, don't know how to play grown-up, clean politics, because the Democrats have had such a hold on Albany for so many years. We ended up with people like the unbelievably arrogant Andrew Cuomo, who made enemies left and right, and finally, the tables turned on him. And there's a really powerful lesson there about you need to pay attention to your constituents. You need to pay attention to the needs of your constituents. And playing politics is fun, but if that's all you do, then you're not accomplishing anything, and the voters will eventually slap you around.
I do hug and kiss people casually.
Yes, that's right. That's the aforementioned. Right.
It's not about how you feel.
Right. Kim, did you, David? Yeah, go ahead.
What he was saying, just imagine that you actually have to do your job and pay attention to the people who elected you. I mean, what a shocker. Do you think that there's something that the GOP wants from McCarthy? Is there a big ask, or is it a bunch of little asks for districts around the country?
I mean, no, I don't think so. And
it's not even for districts, is it, David? It really seems as though it's control.
Well, McCarthy has always wanted to be speaker, but if you look at his record, there's no indication he's forced him. I mean, whatever you think of Paul Ryan, he was very clear about what he wanted. We have to get rid of Social Security. We have to get rid of Medicare, things like that, and have a bigger military. Nancy Pelosi had a very clear agenda. She wanted to move the country towards universal health care, which we haven't reached yet. She wanted to go after discriminatory policies that are baked in against women, minorities, Native peoples, etc. And she, at the same time, was very friendly to business. But there's nobody in the Republican House leadership who has any reputation. And the guy the Republicans may run for president in 2 years, Governor Ron DeSantis, when he was a member of the House, there were Republicans who said that he gave an empty suit a good name. And that's how vapid he was. This is a guy who's now going to investigate, the CDC and vaccines at the state level. I mean, and wants to make sure no child ever sees a textbook that says, oh, by the way, human beings used to own other human beings. He'd much prefer that we think these were guest workers who came here seeking opportunity they didn't have in Africa.
Well, there is the discourse is just about owning the libs. I mean, there's just so much of it that is that. And so that's sort of become the one who can own the libs the hardest is king or the ruler. And it just seems as though there's a lot of that these days in American politics. DCReport.org is where you can find David's work. And even as he steps back from daily work there, I know you're still going to have a hand in things, and there's still some great journalism and great takes going on there. I love that you have an environmental beat that's being done. I mean, the financial breakouts that are done there at DCReport.org, a lot of stories that just don't make it to mainstream media.
Right. And I think our new publisher, who's been a friend of mine for more than 40 years, was the Disney Studios executive behind Dead Poets Society, Good Morning Vietnam, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, lots of other successful movies. I think he has the executive capacity to grow this, raise more money, and attract people. And I hope he does. I mean, I hope he goes way beyond where my friend David Crook and I went with the organization.
Last question is just about independent journalism of the sort that we're talking about when it comes to DCReport.org and others. And we find ourselves, having to do that money raise all the time if people want to support the show just in this little world. As you watch major papers, the LA Times, the New York Times, the Chronicle, and many others, the Merc, they become sort of, there's sadly just not as much in the way of money they can make. And as a result, their product and the amount of paper you get, the amount of number of articles, the amount of journalism that can be done, just to extend the question, is more limited. And so that brings me to the independent journalism and what its future is. Do you have a take on that, David?
I do. Let me point out, I think the New York Times, which has more journalists today than when I left almost 15 years ago, is a unique and unusual circumstance, and they're doing well. They churn out investigative pieces every week, which when I was there, that was unheard of. We do a couple of big lifts a year.
But the others, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the LA Times, for example, when I worked there for 12 years, a great newspaper, really shriveled. Well, it's come back, but it's also dependent on the largesse of its owner, Dr. Patrick Cheong-Soon, and I don't know how long he'll decide to dip into his pocket to subsidize the paper. But on the others, Philadelphia Inquirer, the San Francisco Chronicle, et cetera, they're really just very thin. There was a point at which the Long Beach Press Telegram, Long Beach, California, has more people living in it than Miami. A couple of years ago, the Long Beach Press Telegram had one reporter. I kid you not, one reporter. And they were trying to hire 8 others. You need 9 reporters to cover a city of more than 500,000. So the model of newspapers is broken. All the classified ads, which were unbelievably profitable. They're gone. The display ads.
You don't like to think of papers essentially being propped up by classified ads, but you're right.
You know, a newspaper is a place that brings buyers and sellers together.
Sure.
And people like me are the carnival barkers who say, hey, come here and see this, and come inside the tent. So there's a real need for a new model. And I think the model we need is separate endowments. We have several foundations like the Park Foundation in Ithaca, New York, that support news organizations that make unrestricted grants. It's a lot of money. You know, real news is expensive. I did a feature that ran in the feature section of the LA Times 35 years ago. And an editor wanted something. And I looked at him and said, that's going to cost you $10,000 in expense account money. And he looked at me and said, I don't care. That wouldn't happen today. It was, by the way, ended up being technically one sentence, but it was in a paragraph. So one paragraph, $10,000 for that one paragraph. Today they won't authorize a FedEx. Yeah, it'd be very difficult to do something like that today at almost any paper. The New York Times, they're still spending money like crazy because they've got it, because of their unique position. And
I think the Washington Post probably as well. Probably David helped a bit by I think Trump helped the Post and New York Times. Yeah,
and some of those digital subscriptions and other things, they may fade away. But the way to do this is permanent charitable capital devoted to supporting news organizations and then making unrestricted grants or long-term grants for specific things. Like where I live, it would be really great if we could get a funded city government reporter. There are city councils in this country in cities with 200,000 and 300,000 and 400,000 population who have not had a reporter, except for some minor neighborhood publication, sit through a meeting in years. And you know who loves that? All the crooks, the people who want to make money off government through crooked behavior. And sooner or later, taxpayers are going to wake up and go, oh, that's not so good. The other underlying problem, Mark, is deeper and can't be solved quickly. 54% of American adults, more than half, read at 6th grade level or below. 1 in 5, 20%, read at 3rd grade level or below. This is a severe decline in reading skills compared to, say, 40 or 50 years ago. Yeah. It's a result of our not properly funding and education and demanding that students perform, not teachers, students perform. And so if you can't read above 6th grade level, even an ordinary community newspaper is going to be difficult. Read the New York Times, that's a specialized skill, frankly. You have to learn how to do it, and you're going to be an educated person in all likelihood. But this loss of reading skills in the long run will be disastrous to the American economy. And remember, innumeracy is rampant. Far more people are innumerated than illiterate. So
numeracy is a ding word. I'd like to get you back, David, to discuss this in greater detail. I mean, to really focus on American education and what's happened. This is such a great point you're making, and you're making, of course, at the end. We're out of time, but I really wonder if we could make that the front and center thing we speak of, because the wealthiest nation, we should have the best educated populace, and it just isn't the case, you know.
Well, in 2 weeks, because my wife and I are going to Disney World next week.
Oh, have fun.
Yeah,
and I'll see you in 2 weeks, pal.
In 2 weeks it is. David Cay Johnston, everybody. Bye-bye. Happy retirement. We'll look forward to you hanging out here a little bit.